Hello guys, this is Michael from the IELTS Grind, and you guys have been asking us to do more speaking videos, which is exactly what we're going to do here. We are going to give you some high level part 3 answers and questions. Remember guys, what you need to be doing is looking at the vocabulary that I use, looking at the sentence frames that I use. Remember, these are sentences that are easy to change for your own stories. And finally, and most importantly, you should be looking at how I structure my answers, where I give a direct answer and then supporting details afterwards. All right, without further ado, let's jump on into it.
All right, so let's now turn to the subject of impatience.
Okay.
In what jobs is impatience a virtue?
Ooh, that's a tough question because impatience is usually a vice, right? Like, I can't really think off the top of my head where it's good to be impatient. Maybe in sales, where like you keep following a lead, you keep pushing a potential customer until they eventually break down their barriers and give up and purchase your product. But isn't impatience like inherently a bad thing? I really can't think of any jobs where it's good to be impatient. Like, I think it's always better to be patient.
What are some jobs where patience might be a virtue?
Okay, well, there's tons of those. Teaching is one good example. You need to be patient as a teacher. Being a doctor or surgeon, a surgeon is better than a doctor because, you know, you need to do things methodically and correctly, otherwise your patient may die. I feel like there's a lot of jobs where patience would definitely be a virtue, but most people in that job are impatient. Bus drivers is a really good example. They're usually very impatient people, but the world would be a much better place if they weren't. Yeah, that's it.
What are some situations where people often become impatient?
Oh, there's tons of situations. Basically, any time when an expectation is set. So like, a good example is now there's like one-day delivery in a lot of places, thanks especially to Amazon. And so if it takes any longer than a day, people of course get impatient. So deliveries is a great example. When people go out and spend a lot of money, I find that people are often impatient. So if they go to the restaurant or to a movie theater, they have these high expectations because they've spent a lot of money. And so if there's a long line at the concession stand to get popcorn or something, they get impatient. If they have to wait before they get seated, they are impatient. These are some really common situations.
Do you think that this fact that people become impatient is a burden on most businesses?
Ooh, that's a good question. I haven't really thought of that before. I don't think it's a burden because I think businesses know that they have to deal with this. And so it's kind of become routine, right? Like it's just a fact of life for them. So it's not an additional burden because they planned for it. They have training for their salespeople so that they know how to deal with impatient customers and how to head off the impatience, if it were, by meeting the customer's expectations before they become impatient. So I don't think it's too much of an added burden just because it's how the world works and everyone knows it.
Do you think that young people are always impatient?
I think for the most part they are. You know, children for the most part they don't have a good concept of they're very selfish. Children are very selfish. They need to be taught patience. They need to be taught virtues. Before they're taught, they just do what they want with no concern about others' welfare. And patience is a big part of that. So of course they're impatient. They want what they want and they want it now.
Is there anything that young parents can do to help their young children become less impatient?
I mean, really, they just need to teach them, ideally through example. Like, children soak up things so quickly. We know that they soak up language, but they also really want their parents' approval, and they try to copy their parents whenever possible. So if their parents show themselves to be very patient individuals and use patience when making decisions or in everyday life, I think the children will pick up on that. And then, but you also need to couple this with telling the child when they're wrong. So if you saw the child being impatient, they need to be taught that this is not acceptable behavior. But it really needs to go hand in hand. If parents are being impatient, it doesn't matter what they tell their children, the children are going to copy that aspect. So you need both.
Thank you. That is the end of the speaking test.
Oh, thank you. Hi guys, I hope these answers and questions didn't scare you away. These are quite difficult, but again, the examiner is going to scale their answers based on your ability. So because I'm a native speaker, of course I'm going to get really tough questions. Remember, your job is just to find things that are useful for you. That's what you've got to do. All right, guys, feel free to listen to this as many times as you would like. Leave a comment down below with some questions if you want us to answer any. And I'll see you next time. Please like us if you liked it. Peace.